Okay, so this is the Hovsco HovGTRS, and anybody who is familiar with this bike will instantly recognize that this has been highly modified. This was one of my favorite bikes that I've ever reviewed. I'm way too tall for the bike, and I can't get a good pedal stroke on it, but because it's so small and has such a short wheelbase, it's just really zippy and handles really well. It's just a lot of fun to zip around on. But let's go back in time and talk about what actually happened to this bike. And that is, I like this bike so much that I was working on a follow-up video for this bike. And I got my son to help me with that. And he was riding it, getting some footage for me. And then this happened. Oh! Oh! So my son did get a little bit hurt out of that. He got scraped up, he got bruised, but nothing more than just surface level scratches and bruises. So we really lucked out there. The bike, on the other hand, basically it had some bent forks and some really messed up cabling. And I like the bike so much, I decided rather than scrap it, I would rebuild it and turn it into a mod bike. And that's where we're at now. And like a phoenix from the ashes, here she is now. I made some heavy modifications to this bike because I just couldn't let her go to the scrap pile. I like this bike that much. First off, I replaced the front forks because they got bent in the accident. These are some super lightweight air forks, and I didn't really plan it that way. They were just the cheapest ones I could get off of Amazon that would fit this bike, so that's what I went with. They do set just a little bit taller than the old forks, and they are considerably lighter than the stock forks. So with the base weight of the bike being shifted up and the forks being a lot lighter, now it kind of wheelies on takeoff. It creates the illusion of more power, but it's actually just weight distribution. It's fun to ride, but it's a little bit surprising if you're not ready for it. The next big modification that I made was adding this second battery, and I had to build this bracket for it. This is actually a bracket from an old TV wall mount that I cut down and made fit for this, but it worked out pretty well. This is a 10 amp hour battery, but it's a high-long case battery, and there are a bunch of these all over the internet. You can get these really cheap, and what I like about this setup is that I can get a 20 amp hour battery that will fit right on this and be the same form factor. It'll just be a little bit taller. This is a 10 amp hour battery here. It's what I went with because it's what I had. So we've got a 10.4 amp hour battery here and a 15 amp hour battery down there. So it's a like 25, just a little over 25 amp hour for battery life. As you can see, I did have to modify the seat here, and it was a big old banana seat that came out all the way to like right here. So I cut that down to make room for the battery, and I'm able to unlock the battery and slide it back enough that I don't have to take everything completely apart just to get this all put together. This is our battery balancer here. I've got extension cables run down into the controller housing here and then run back up, and this balancer sits here. It's just kind of zip tied on. I've made some spacers to level this out so that it wouldn't be like all whopper jawed and jank like that. And that's really about it. I haven't made any other changes to speak of that I can think of. You know, the second battery is huge because I want to be able to ride this bike at higher speeds for longer times. That was the downside of this bike. 15 amp hours pretty respectable, but you want to ride this bike so fast that, you know, it kind of burns through the battery pretty quickly. So I want to see how far that extra 10 amp hours are going to take me. I haven't done a real ride with this bike yet. I've done a couple little like around the block and up and down the road by my house, but I haven't done any real rides to speak of. The headlight needs replaced. I didn't realize that until today, but I'm going to take it out on a first maiden voyage ride and see how she does right now. And I keep hearing thunder, so this is probably going to be a fast ride. I'm going to ride as much as I can, but I just kind of want to see how she's going to do. So let's get geared up and go down the trail. Oh, you know, another thing I forgot to mention is I moved the throttle over here on the right side. I never could get used to it being over here on the left. I kept, every time I would try to take off, I would fiddle around reaching for something over here on the right. So I just moved it over to the right so it would be a bit more natural. And that works out great for me. But here we go, first ride on the modified Hovsco. So you can see when I hit the power, it wants to lift off the ground. The bike isn't any more powerful than it was. It's just the way the weight is distributed now. So it's one of those things that when I take off, I kind of got to keep in mind to lean forward a little bit. I might put some lower bars on it just so that it causes the rider to naturally do that. But it definitely has some takeoff for sure. And a lot of that is because, you know, moped bikes are so like short with the pedal stroke that you kind of got to sit way back on the back of the seat to be able to get a pedal stroke. I've given up on being able to get a pedal stroke on a moped style bike. I just don't even try to pedal them anymore. But yeah, here we go. Just throttle only this whole ride, pedal assist level 5. I do pedal, it's just out of habit, but really kind of pointless to do on a moped bike. I'm really more curious like what kind of range I'm going to get out of this bike. One thing I've noticed about this bike is that it gets up to like 26, 27 miles per hour really fast, and then it just kind of creeps up to 29. I don't think this bike is really made for that top speed 29 anyway. It's more for the zippy acceleration from 0 to like 25. So I'm riding it on the trails today just because my plan was to go for a long range ride, but due to this thunderstorm that I think I'm riding into like a dummy, I don't think I'm going to be able to get the full range ride in. Anyway, my point is that I'm getting at is I think this bike is really made more for zipping around town and doing the, you know, up to 25, 26 miles per hour rather than riding trails like this. It's fun. It's doing just fine on this trail, but it's not really made for this. It's more of a city commuter style bike. I'm going to try to get down to my 8-mile mark before I get rained out and then turn around and come back. That should put me at 16 miles. When I did my initial test of this bike with the single battery, I did like 15 miles, and that dropped it down to 2 battery bars out of 5. I'm going to run it at top speed all the way down to the 8-mile mark and top speed all the way back and see how many battery bars we have left after that. With this second battery, we should get considerably better battery life. I mean, you know, thanks, Captain Obvious. But I will say on my initial test, that was with some like mixed riding. I did some in-town riding where I was pegging at full throttle the entire time and doing a lot of stop and go. But I did hit some trails at that point, and I dropped down to like keeping it under 15 miles per hour. So this bike does want to be ridden as fast as it can be ridden, but it does kind of rip through the battery pretty fast. So hopefully this second battery is going to really add a lot to the rideability of this bike. And like I said, I put this 10 amp hour battery on the bike because it's what I had, but it's a high-long form factor, 5-pin high-long form factor, so I could pick up a 20 amp hour battery and replace it and make really good use of that with no problems, and switching it out to the 20 amp hour battery instead of the 10 amp hour battery should be very easy if I wanted to do that. As a matter of fact, I've got several bikes at home that use this form factor, and I've got a like 17.5 amp hour battery on another bike. If I wanted to swipe that one, I could. But I just want to see how far this extra 10 amp hour battery is going to take me and see how well it does. As I mentioned, I replaced these front forks with air forks, and they're riding pretty good. Like I said, it did shift the weight back a bit. I could probably take some of the air out of the shocks and have it shift forward a little bit, and that would stop the wheeling problem, and it would soften the ride up. I think this is riding pretty good, but I will play with it and experiment and see what I like. it is pretty fun when you take off from a stop that the front wheel does lift off the ground every single time unless you lean forward. So, I mean, you know, if you want to kind of show off a little bit, I guess that's fun. But if you don't want to draw attention to yourself, it would probably be more beneficial to soften those shocks up a little bit. And I'm starting to feel raindrops now, and we're at the 4.5 mile mark. I'm going to the 8 mile mark. Hopefully we can get down there and get back before any real rain hits me. I'm covering a lot of ground pretty fast. This is a lot faster than I normally ride on this trail. So as I mentioned in my initial review of this bike, it is a bit of a cramped ride. It's a small bike, but it's a lot of fun to ride. But with it being as small as it is, I mean, it kind of is what it is, and it makes it for a very cramped ride. With its short wheelbase, it turns on a dime and it handles really tight, and that makes it a lot of fun to ride. I've considered even just taking the pedals off of this bike and putting pegs on it. The pedals are kind of useless as it is anyway. I can't get a good full pedal stroke, and even at my legs are bent even with the pedals fully extended. But the reason I've left them on so far is if the battery dies, it is nice to have some pedals to make your way home if you need them. Oh buddy, the rain is starting to come down harder, and I got 2 more miles to go. A smart man would turn around and go back now, but I'm not a smart man, so yeah, I'm at 6.4 miles. I'm covering a lot of ground pretty fast, so I'm gonna continue on and go down to the 8 mile mark, and we're gonna do it. As far as the forks go, I think I'm gonna have to take these forks off and pound the crown race down in just a little bit tighter, because I do feel, I mean, just a hair, I mean, almost unnoticeable, just like a frog hair's worth of wiggle in the forks here. But I mean, I've ridden worse from cheaper bikes. I think it would just be beneficial for me to pull that off and check and make sure. I mean, it's rideable the way it is. I think just for the sake of making sure, I'll feel a little bit better riding it with a seated crown race. And we're at the 8 mile mark, which I know for a fact that this is not the 8 mile mark, so this odometer is off. But the rain is coming down considerably harder now, and this is what I went by on my first range test, on my initial test of this bike. So I'm going to turn around now, and we're going to see where we're at with the battery life when I get back. Right now we're at 4 out of 5 bars, and I've ridden this thing pretty hard all the way here, but I hear thunder and the rain is starting to come down harder, so I'm going to race back as fast as I can and wrap this up. All right, I feel a little bit better that I'm headed towards blue, less cloudy skies this way, but I'm still catching a little bit of rain here. I just hope this storm doesn't I just hope this storm isn't chasing me too close behind. I'm not going to turn around and look. I'm too scared. Another thing that I'm a little worried about is this battery balancer. I've never used one before, and you know, stuff that you buy off of Amazon that is like electronic parts, I'm kind of nervous as to if this thing is just going to burst into flames at any point. I hope not. I hope it's going to be okay. To be real with you, the first time I rode an e-bike, I was wondering if it was going to burst into flames the entire time, but as it turned out, it was just unmerited fears. But I watched all the news reports and heard everything about e-bikes and about how dangerous they were. So, you know, anytime I deal with any kind of like Chinese third-party parts that I buy off of Amazon and slap on a bike, especially electronic parts, I do worry as to whether or not they're going to hold up. So far, so good, though. All right, back to the beginning of the ride now. I went 16 miles on the dot, and luckily I beat the rain coming back. And I am at 3 out of 5 bars. And in my initial review of this bike, I rode 15 miles, and that was mixed style riding, where I did like half of it was casual riding and the other half was really hard riding, and I dropped down to 2 bars out of 5. So the second battery definitely makes a difference, because I went 16 miles and I rode the bike hard, full throttle the entire time, and finished now 16 miles, 3 out of 5 bars left. So I will definitely be getting a lot more range. I mean, it goes without saying, adding an extra 10.4 amp hours of battery life, but I think I may actually go up to the 20 amp hour battery pack that I can get. So that would take this bike up to like 35 amp hours of power. That would take this lightweight 72 pound bike very, very far. And one more thing I learned on this ride is that I really need to change these grips out. These grips are terrible. They are paper thin, and they pick up every vibration along the road. And riding on a trail like this, where it's like crushed gravel, by the end of the ride, my arthritis, literally my hand locked up. So it needs some thicker padding on these grips, which that'll be a trip down to Walmart. We'll take care of that, no problem. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. That's it for now, and I'll see you next time. All right, in today's episode of I'm Dumb, here's something I didn't even think about until after I got that ride over with yesterday. But to take care of the wheeling problem, basically I just loosened up the crowns and slid them down the forks, and that took care of the problem. The top of the forks do set a bit higher than the stock forks set, but it rides just fine, and it doesn't rock it out from underneath me on takeoff. So I have control of the bike doesn't have control of me, and that's what I want. So this took care of the major problem that I was having with the bike. Now I can sit back on the seat mod, no problem there. It has more of that like cafe racer posture instead of a chopper posture, and that's what I want, because I want to be able to handle the bike, especially in like low speed maneuvering and things like that. I don't want the bike to rocket out from underneath me every time I hit the throttle. But yeah, easy, simple fix, something I just didn't think of until I got home yesterday.